Alright. Alright, typically your Vanguard engine, your 31 horse, you got a dipstick right here, yellow dipstick, just like a car engine. The main difference here is you got the oil level. There's only 2 quarts of oil in the engine. So it's critical. You can't be down a quart or you're going to have issues. The other issue is because it's only 2 quarts of oil, the other fact behind it is being an air-cooled engine, there's no water or radiator on this. Normally with water radiator, you see like 200 degrees, you know, they can go a little higher if they're pressurized, you know, and go beyond the boiling point. Air-cooled, it is what it is. And you guys being from Trinidad, if you got 90-degree air, ambient air coming in here, this engine's already going to run at about 350 degrees Fahrenheit by average. And actually the heat coming off the back of the unit could go up to 1,000 degrees around the muffler. That's one of the reasons we also emphasize a belt drive pump, because with a belt driven pump you're actually off that engine, so there's no metal to metal contact, there's no the air flows through here and blows across the head and off to the back. So you can imagine if the pump was back here, it would be in like 350 degree oven all day long, and the radiating heat from the muffler at almost 1,000 degrees. It's not an environment that's going to allow any pump to last any length of time. So that's what we got, you know, you're getting the belt drive, low speed industrial. The other aspect of the pump is a low speed pump. It normally runs at half the engine speed. Just like how we pulled up in the van. You imagine if I was stuck in first gear doing 65 miles an hour with this load on the back. If I tried to get to Florida right now, I probably wouldn't get out of Michigan before I blew something up. So having a low speed dialed in pump and engine means that this pump's designed to last for thousands of hours, not 30 or 40 or 100 hours, you know what I mean? So that's the other aspect. So it's belt driven, so you do have to always pay attention to your belts back here. You got 3 belts. You want to make sure they're tight, they're well adjusted. They got a very good guide rail system to keeping the pump aligned here, and it also is easy to adjust within reason if you have some mechanical background. So, and you got all your stainless steel belt guard here, all your heat shields protecting the belts in the tank. So everything is taken into account when it comes to the unit itself. With the pump itself too, you have the dipstick, we check the oil. If you have to fill the oil, there's a fill cap here that's yellow. And to drain the oil, it's right here with the drain hose, okay? So it's very simple. You do have an oil filter here, so it's a filtered system. We do recommend, normally I go above the recommended. The recommended is about every 100 hours of runtime. I like 50 hours. 50 hours you can get from here to Florida, South Florida, and back. I would change my oil, you know what I mean? Especially since it's only 2 quarts and you're going to have something that makes you this much money per hour. Take care of it. Your pump also has a sight glass right here, so it's very, very easy for you guys to check your oil, because it's just, even with the red dot on level ground. You have a dipstick too if needed. Sometimes you can't see the dipstick, the gauge sight glass, so you know you have the both options. You have a drain in the back. There is no hose on it. Be a nice feature if they did, but it's a little bit where you kind of just get the right little piece back there in order to drain your oil. Normally you use pump oil if you can, general pump oil. The alternative would be like a synthetic 30 weight. And just drain it and fill it back to that line. About every 100, technically they can go between 300 and 500 hours, or you can do it like every 6 months or whatever your pace is. Normally your oil should be crystal clear. If for any reason you pick up the dipstick and it looks like a little bit of whipped cream or something, that means water got into the oil. So you got to always watch for that crystal clear look. So if you start to see any kind of foam, because your high pressure and low pressure packings are here, sometimes with the packings, if you blow a seal, you may get water past the oil seals and into the pump itself. So that's one of your most important things to keep an eye on top of that. So that's also why a good change your oil and do your maintenance. On the same part, up and under the pump here, it's open. So if you were to start to have a little bit of a seal leak, packing leak or something, if you see any little drips of water, I mean it could be a drip every 40 seconds, you know your packings have been damaged and you want to replace your packings on the pump. Probably go to a pump supplier, somebody that deals with that, and have that taken care of. With Hydro-Tek, they have a lot of redundant safety devices on the system here. You have your supply line going into your pump. You can see through it so you see if there's any air or any debris. You want to make sure this is clean and nice. This first is the pressure relief valve here. And this is if the pump was to over-pressurize beyond, say, 4,500 PSI, something failed with the unloader system here, that can pop and leak. Now, you have a test gauge here, and it's a good idea to have another gauge at the end of the gun, before the gun and at the end of the hose, so you can determine different diagnostic issues with the machine itself. So, if your pressure is still in the right operating pressure, like 3,500 PSI, and your spike is under 4,500 or around 4,000, then on occasion this spring that's in here may be adjusted slightly, because over maybe a year's time it might weaken a little.
Some tension.
But if it's doing its job, it's doing its job, and you want to pay attention. That's the number one thing, is to keep an eye out for a leak here. Now, this is a thermal relief valve here, because we do have a warm bypass on this system because it's a wheelie bin cleaner that could work up north. We leave it there, so if the pump was to get a little too hot, the inlet water, this would pop off. On a normal pressure washer, what they would normally do is have this is the bypass hose going back to tank. It would actually go back to the inlet of the pump, so it would be a little closed loop system. Problem with that is if you walk away from a Home Depot or any pressure washer for more than 4 or 5 minutes, that water that's trapped in that cycle can boil and melt the pump. So that's your heat of bypass. How we eliminated that problem for you guys is we're going to have the bypass going back to the tank. You'd have to circulate all the water in the entire tank to be able to cook it. And there's been issues where we've actually had guys leave them all day long and it got hot. You know what I mean? So you want to just keep it common sense when it comes to those. When it comes to the pressure and operating the burner system, the burner can run away. So if, with a diesel fire burner, if it was allowed to superheat, just say all of a sudden the burner was running right now by itself and everything was closed off, the machine could actually hit about 14,000 pounds of steam pressure without really the pump playing much role in that equation. And this thing would just blow apart. I mean, it would rip the side of the trailer off. The whole machine would be disintegrated almost. I mean, I have a small steam explosion on video, and it's pretty interesting.
So you have an illustration in the office too.
Yep. And the key behind that is that you don't want to bypass safety devices. You don't want to have a Mickey Mouse guy going in there and doing what they do. Oh, I can get this thing working. We'll bypass this. We'll get you up and running. You want to play it safe. One thing nice with this system is I'll go through the device and I'll tell you the safety valve on the other side here. So basically, this is your flow switch, which will be in your manuals and all the information that I hope you broke down on it. This will monitor the flow of water going through the coil in the machine. When you shut the gun off, the flow is shut off, okay? And this is after the unloader, so this is really monitoring the hose, the flow coming out the pressure hose and all. Because flow's still going to come out the bypass with the gun off, but that's not going to affect the flow meter because it's kind of downstream. So no flow, no heat. And in this case, they actually shut off the electrical source for the heater. No pressure, that's a pressure switch. No pressure, no heat. So there's certain pressure that it has to operate on. Another one of the electrical devices that shuts the electrical system off. Now what's kind of unique is there's either going to be what they call a high limit switch or a thermostat control. Same thing, does the same job, one's adjustable. Your thermostat control up here will allow you to adjust the temperature. So it's also going to max out with a high volume machine. It's normally right around a little over 200 degrees, they're right at 200 degrees on this. And that, if say the temperature was to skyrocket getting into an issue, this is designed to actually shut off your fuel. So now you've got your spark and electrical shutdown. So it's really a brilliant way of giving you that extra security where you don't have that. I mean, there's some companies that are so cheap they just use like a flow switch, and that's it. You know what I mean? So the idea of being able to have something this good, this dependable, and that's really why, you know, we overemphasize like a Hydro-Tek brand. I mean, Land is good. There's other brands that are high quality, and there's some that you want to stay away from. Say something did happen, say there was an electrical issue or some major failure on the machine, there is a steam burst relief valve on the machine. It's actually a burst diaphragm or burst disc they call it. And that burst disc is actually located right here. This looks like a hose barb right here, this large hose barb looking assembly.
Yeah.
There's a disc in here. Now that's rated at 8,000 PSI. So we're talking steam pressure normally on this one. So if there was an issue where you had a superheat, now on occasion I've had guys that drag the hose behind the trailer, they get a little low on water, they take off to go to the next stop. Sometimes you get a big gulp of air, but it doesn't cut the machine off. Maybe it gets into a little steam situation just because there's a little lack of water, but it was still went back to running. You might have a steam spike, and that'll pop off. What you normally do is install a new one yourself or have someone do it. If you install the new one and you went back to work and operate, and then all of a sudden, boom, that blew up, you shut the machine down and take it to a service center immediately. But on occasion, I have had these out of the blue just pop, and you know, it didn't happen again for another year or so. So, not to say that that exact scenario created that steam burst, but it was something that was a very quick intermittent situation. So that, we want to make sure we get you a spare one of those.
Right.
Now, here in the USA with carbon emission control, they've gone to a black fuel tank for probably UV protection, etc. The other aspect is there is that carbon filter assembly right here. This allows they have now a vented cap, so there's no, not vented, non-vented. So it's pressurized, so any of the vacuum now is going to be going through a carbon filter and being circulated back to the engine, so it isn't going out to the emissions.
Right.
So this, normally I haven't heard any bad situation where this got clogged or full, but it may be something down the line that may be a replacement requirement, but I've never ever had that happen yet. You do have dual outlets on the machine here. So you got two high pressure lines. In this case, one's going to this reel, and then the other reel on the back by the hopper is actually the power washer, a little different. But you're still getting two high pressure reels and two hoses. You have your belt guard here too for your generator. This is the 2900 watt onboard 115 volt generator. This makes it for the best system for hot water units. Anytime you have a generator, the burner runs off the 115 volts. And in this case, in your case, there's plugs on the back here with ground fault circuit interrupter that allows you to run the vacuum recovery system or lights at night if you need it for gas station or commercial work. And what you want to do is when you start the machine and we have the burner on and the thermostat on, this light will turn on every time the gun is pulled and the burner starts to ignite. Okay, and it doesn't stay running all the time. This is a high efficiency burner system. So what actually happens is probably within the hour you might have 10 minutes of ignition because it's so well insulated. And that's why this can burn so little diesel fuel per day. There's machines that if you put it up to 150, the machine will never get to 150 because it's, I won't get into all the detail. Yeah. But the problem is it'd be like in the middle of winter at 20 degrees outside, if your windows are open, you crank the furnace for the next month at 80 degrees, it's never going to reach 80 degrees. So the furnace will never, ever turn off the entire month. You have more runtime on that in 1 month than an entire winter. You know what I mean? So because this thing does have the heat and efficiency and the high way this thing runs, it is by far about a third of the amount of diesel fuel you can go through in a normal month. I mean, it pays for itself in the long run. So, and then this switch here on this model is your auxiliary switch. So when you want the recycling system to turn on, you turn this switch on, which will power the electrical plugs. And behind the panel is two plugs, the 115 volt, 110 volt plug. So that operates that. So if you're not getting vacuum, you want to just make sure that's on and then turn your vacuum switch on and work with that. You do have some ground fault circuit interrupter here, and there's a reset on the like you would have in your bathroom or something for the plug. And what I found out that's unique and good to know, we went to energize this one up, and I didn't get any power. So I went to look, and I'm looking, there was a little red light that was lit behind here, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, I got power. I mean, the light was on, you know, I assume so. Turned out that that meant that the circuit breaker was tripped. So once I put the button in, all of a sudden the light went out. I'm thinking, oh, and I didn't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing, but it turned out my vacuum came on. So that's a good indicator, quick to know if you need to reset that button. And the button's right in between the two receptacles, just like a home one would be. You do have a choke on this engine. One thing about these quality Hydro-Tek hot water units with the generator, you don't want a variable RPM. Because if you ran this machine, say you were able to throttle the machine down to 2800 RPM, that means the generator is spinning slow and you're going to get less voltage. This is a fixed RPM, that way you're getting the proper voltage out of the burner, out of the generator to the burner. So we actually had another one. Kohlers actually come with a disconnected throttle.
Yeah.
I've had guys actually take it in and get them repaired, and then also try to adjust the throttle, and thank goodness they didn't damage anything, because I said, no, there's a reason they're locked at the proper RPM, which is normally 3,450 RPM, and it runs at about 3,250 under a load. So this is set the way you want it to be, and there's no damage or harm for it to run at kind of a full throttle,
right.
you know.
Yeah.
I remember I worked at a dealership, and some guy put a brick on the gas pedal and walked away. He wanted to blow up his engine, and all the service guys go, it's covered, it's done. I mean, it's not going to do it any damage. It's just going to run until it runs out of gas. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't overspec. So this thing is well designed for that. It is a 12-volt electric start engine. The biggest thing you do want to know, that's why we have, you know, a ball valve like this. There's a nice little feature, and I put it on your proposal. When you go to start the machine, you don't want to turn your pump spinning and everything. If you're dead-headed into a gun and wand, that engine cannot turn over. You're not going to get the starter to push the pump. You know what I mean? So you always have to release the pressure. But what we can do on this, in this case, is pull the gun out and just make sure you release the pressure. By having a ball valve on there, it just allows for you to easily start the unit. And what's nice too is if you got two ball valves, which you guys will have, say you're in the backyard doing the deck, you run out of gas, you got to refill, you got to do something, you could just go to your other high pressure reel and release the pressure. You can leave that other one there, start the engine, shut your valve off, now you're back to work. That helps a lot when you're doing your roofs. You don't want to be up and down that roof all the time. So that extra valve and the extra hose and reel pays for itself in that long run too. You do want to lock your reels in place once you roll everything out, because it will recoil a lot. You'll see the kick on this.
Okay.
And then in the back side there's another pressure relief valve also on the outlet of the coil. So any of those, they look the same. You'll know what they are. So you're going to be in good shape there. Your 12-volt battery is here. Now your vacuum recovery system is also hooked into the battery, so the vacuum runs off the generator. Your transfer pump, which will also light up, runs off the battery. So there's a nice way that you could check those items. The other thing, inside the recycling unit are two float valves that are on cords. And if you needed to see if your pump's working or your vacuum is on and off, by you lifting up the valve and where it's floating upward, the vacuum should turn off on the vacuum one, the 115. The other one, when you lift it up, the transfer pump will kick on. So it actually will, one shuts the vacuum off, one turns the pump on. That way when they both lift together, you're not getting water into the vacuum motor. So, and that way if you forgot to turn your vacuum on or you pop your trip, you trip your trip, it will automatically, make sure the vacuum isn't drawing more water. Once again, an oil filter here. You do have your low oil alert on here. The spark plug, and it's spark ignition, so you have your spark plugs, and just keep maintenance on that as needed. You do have an air filter under here, so you have to just take that. Once a year normally, unless you're working on a ton of construction sites with a lot of dirt roads or something. Not that often, but do check it. I mean, if something does happen and runs weird, you could get some backsplash and some fuel or something to saturate it. But other than that, that's where you're at. Your thermostat ties in right here. That's where that thermostat control ties in and checks your outlet temperature. And pretty much, I mean, you've got a good rundown. This is a high pressure injector. We normally don't run that. We left it because this trailer is going to be in a northern state. So they can also open this valve up and allow some antifreeze in there. You could put soap and pressure wash under high pressure soap with that system. The trade-off is, now the soap is full, the pump is full of soap. You shut the gun off with the soap and go right to your supply tank. So if you wanted high pressure soap for some reason, you would have to eliminate the bypass and put that back to the pump. And then you'd have that little time frame of where you could damage a pump. So we choose to not normally utilize that feature. But if you had an application for it, we could. And you do have an hour meter to maintain and do all that. Alright, we got enough talking done, so we can do some playing now with the unit. There is a Raycor fuel filter on the other side for the diesel fuel. It's also a water separator. You normally only replace the filter element, unless something happened to your bulb. Alright, now, normally I'd run maybe all the hose to the end. I don't want to dirty this hose since it's a new hose going to his customer. So I want to make sure it goes out nice.
That's why he's here, to make sure everything runs smoothly.
Yeah, I definitely wanted him here. If I was smart, I would have had him pull the hose out, then he could say, he dirtied it. Now, since this is dual outlet, what we could I'll fire up the unit and we'll use. Yeah. This will be the amazing part. I want to do start to finish this whole driveway and see how long it really takes.